what we will see is a period of greater inflation. We will see a period of greater de-dollarization. And if what I see is happening happens, potentially, this could be like the snap of a finger, like the Operation Sandman. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen, but that's what they could potentially do. Who's been buying all the gold? Oh, that's right. It's those guys. It's the central banks. It's the countries who are buying in Asia, who are buying way more than they're telling us, or in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia got caught buying gold that they didn't report to the IMF last year. So did China. And if you think that they're reporting everything, they're not. They're buying it through proxies, commercial banks or sovereign wealth funds. They are using gold instead of treasuries to act in that same capacity.
The international monetary system is undergoing a significant transformation as nations increasingly seek alternatives to the US dollar. Geopolitical tensions, the expanding reach of Western sanctions, and a growing desire for economic sovereignty have accelerated this shift, commonly called de-dollarization. One key response to this global change is the increasing use of gold, which has regained its historical status as a reliable store of value amid growing uncertainty in global markets. The U.S. Money Reserve, one of the largest private distributors of government-issued precious metals, has underscored this trend, highlighting how gold is emerging as a crucial pillar of financial security in today's unpredictable environment. Since the 2010 financial crisis, central banks have added an impressive 7,900 metric tons of gold to their reserves, with global official gold reserves rising by 1,045 metric tons in 2024 alone. This marks the third consecutive year that central bank gold purchases have exceeded 1,000 metric tons, signaling a strategic pivot away from fiat currencies. Andy Schectman, CEO of Miles Franklin, explains that increasing gold purchases is part of a broader movement away from the dollar as countries look for more stable alternatives amidst global financial uncertainty. Ironically, U.S. policies, such as sanctions, tariffs, and financial restrictions, which aim to assert geopolitical power, are accelerating the global shift away from dollar dependency. These policies encourage nations like China, Japan, and South Korea to reduce their reliance on the US dollar and increase their gold reserves. Furthermore, countries and financial experts propose gold-backed financial strategies to hedge against the dollar's volatility. High-profile figures like Judy Shelton have advocated for creating gold-backed long-term treasuries, while others, such as financier Scott Bessent, anticipate a new Bretton Woods moment that could reshape the global financial landscape. This growing interest in gold as a stabilizing asset is not limited to Western countries, but is also gaining traction in emerging economies. This push for de-dollarization is further amplified by BRICS' development of the BRICS Bridge, a blockchain-based payment system designed to facilitate cross-border transactions using central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, rather than the US dollar. This initiative, alongside other moves to bypass the dollar, highlights the increasing role of gold and alternative currencies in shaping a new international monetary system. We present the clips from Andy's recent interview with Soar Financial. Before we continue to discuss this, please subscribe to our channel and activate the bell icon for timely updates. Thank you, and enjoy the video.
I just think that it seems as though they are pushing towards maybe losing the reserve status. They've made comments about it that because of Triffins Dilemma, being the world reserve currency is not beneficial to the United States and its manufacturing base. Now, you could argue it's been a huge boom for this country, but it's gotten to a point right now where the dilemma is accentuating and accelerating to the point where we're reliant on the rest of the world for our manufacturing. We've destroyed our manufacturing base here in the United States, and especially on critical infrastructure projects and manufacturing. So, yeah, I mean, there is no way to go around the world bullying countries with tariffs if we are going to, in an attempt to try to have less of a trade imbalance and still maintain the world reserve currency. I mean, that is the whole Triffins paradox. So, you know, it's almost as if by their actions that they are trying to incentivize this resetting of the system. Now, under the previous administration, they were doing things in a different way. And I said, it's too stupid to be stupid by antagonizing the rest of the world in a more aggressive manner. Trump is doing it differently, antagonizing through business practices. But nonetheless, you could argue that it's accentuating the move away from the dollar, the de-dollarization. And here we are, you're at like a 22-year low on treasury holdings and roughly the same 22, 25-year high on central bank gold holdings. So they're moving in the opposite direction. The world is shedding treasuries and buying gold for a reason. And I think it has a lot to do with these types of maneuvers that the president is trying to do, pushing back against Triffins Dilemma, which is kind of futile, if you ask me. It would be much easier for us, I think, less detrimental to the economy to approach these countries with the olive branch and mend the broken fences rather than continue to antagonize and to threaten when arguably we are losing leverage every single day based upon our indebtedness and based upon the lack of demand for our debt and the inability for us to service it without creating massive levels of inflation, which ultimately lead to the same place. It just seems as though we're getting to the end of a very long cycle. And that's maybe why Martin Armstrong said to me the other day in our interview that he believes within just a handful of years, China will be the epicenter of the financial universe. The shift is underway right now. And, maybe that's what Trump is trying to do, to reset the system, to have villains to blame it upon, and to usher back in a new system that is tied to gold. And the only reason I say that, Kai, not because I'm hoping or wishing for that, but when you see the amount of gold that's come into the country over the past several months, I mean, the May gold COMEX contract had deliveries of nearly 16,000 contracts. That smashes the previous record that was made in March. Same thing is true on silver, but these things are all being delivered. There's a rush for physical. And when you see Trump come out on Easter Sunday with a tweet saying the golden rule of negotiation, he who has the gold makes the rules. Well, where did that come from? We've become a net importer of gold since November. We've imported more gold since November than we did at any time since World War II, when every country sent us their gold for the Bretton Woods Agreement. And this is highly unusual, along with a good majority of all of this coming in imports standing for delivery instead of cash settling. So something is really, really brewing big with gold. And then you get, rumblings, Judy Shelton, talking about backing a 50-year treasury with gold, telling me personally that Trump would indeed issue them on July 4th, 2026, the 250th year anniversary, that they openly have discussed it. Or Scott Bessent, a self-professed gold bug, his largest holding was in gold, coming out and saying publicly that he expects a new Bretton Woods monetary system during this administration. Things are changing, and it seems that gold is at the center of it.
The U.S. economy is facing growing challenges as policies such as tariff impositions and unchecked money creation strain the global financial system. The U.S. dollar, long the dominant reserve currency, has been sustained through the Federal Reserve's ability to issue dollars and purchase U.S. treasuries. However, this system is beginning to unravel as countries grow increasingly skeptical of the U.S.'s ability to manage its debt. According to Andy Schectman, the world's trust in the U.S. dollar is eroding, and the U.S. is increasingly seen as abusing its financial power by printing dollars out of thin air to settle debts. As the U.S. faces mounting inflation and supply chain disruptions, nations question the fairness of a system that forces them to hold U.S. debt while bearing the consequences of these economic imbalances. This shift is pushing countries to explore alternatives to the U.S. dollar, with many looking for more stable, diversified options for trade and reserves. Schectman argues that the world is witnessing the rise of a multipolar financial system that could diminish the dollar's dominance in international trade. The implications of this change would be far-reaching, affecting everything from global currency markets to trade relationships. As countries seek alternatives to the dollar, including regional currencies or commodities like gold, the U.S. may face a new reality where its economic influence is no longer as powerful or guaranteed as it once was. The reordering of the global financial system is a pivotal moment, with consequences for both the U.S. economy and the world's economic future. Let's get back to the video.
They want us, Kai, to believe that everything is great, yet the Fed just bought $34.8 billion in 10-year bonds over 2 days, and then I think somewhere in the neighborhood of $20 billion in 3-year treasuries at the same time. What does that say? I mean, that to me says that there is virtually no demand for our treasuries, that the Fed is resorting to quiet, stealth quantitative easing through their SOMA group, that they're not talking about it. They say they're still shedding treasuries and mortgage-backed securities off of their balance sheet, yet they're loading up quietly on 3 and 10-year, which is a form of yield curve control. We have tariffs that, on one hand, I could say they're noble in their pursuit of reshoring strategic and critical manufacturing centers, like for AI or microchips or pharmaceuticals or steel or airplane parts, things that we need for the security and the national security at that of this country, for sure. But we also have to remember Triffins Dilemma, which more or less says that if the world runs on US dollars, that they will always require more dollars than we can provide just in global trade. And so we have to export dollars, which ultimately ends up through various factors eviscerating our manufacturing. We will always run a trade imbalance if we are the world reserve currency, but it is that process of selling or buying the world's goods with US dollars and then expecting them to reinvest the proceeds in US treasuries that has kept our interest rates low and our goods cheap and our asset prices high and our standard of living higher. There's a problem here. You can't probably have both. It almost seems to me that the administration has come to this realization, that they realize that perhaps being the world reserve currency isn't as glamorous as it once was, or as vital as it once was, and perhaps becoming more independent rather than and self-reliant rather than relying on everyone else for the things that we need in this country, from military equipment to pharmaceuticals, maybe has greater importance. I think that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. They tell us on paper, Kai, that inflation's getting cheaper, yet everywhere I look, it just seems that the cost of living is getting higher, whether it be tuition or whether it be insurance or food, or everything seems to be getting more expensive. Yet we're told that inflation is coming down. And when you see the Fed step in and buy, in essence, over $50 billion worth of treasuries, well, what does that tell you? That tells you that inflation should reemerge. It tells you that there's not a huge demand for our treasuries. And it tells you that enacting these tariffs maybe are somewhat misplaced, that the rest of the world is saying, you know what, if it's going to be that way, we would rather establish other trade channels. We would rather buy other things that act as a reserve asset like gold with no counterparty risk. And we would rather trade our stuff for US dollars. So yeah, I think that this reemergence of risk on trade is foolhardy, is silly. Short-sighted at that, and I don't know, call me old-fashioned, but I think it's this is not the time to be focusing of return on. It's more along the lines of focusing on return of your money.
The future global economic landscape is poised to shift towards a multipolar world, where countries are becoming more self-reliant and less dependent on interconnected markets. Geopolitical tensions, trade wars, and the rise of nationalist policies are driving this transformation, which is gradually diminishing the US dollar's dominance as the world's primary reserve currency. The growing instability surrounding the dollar pushes nations to seek alternatives that offer more stability and neutrality. In this evolving environment, gold emerges as a key asset, a trusted store of value, and a politically neutral resource. As the world increasingly moves away from a single dominant reserve currency, gold's universal recognition and liquidity position it as a cornerstone of a new global financial system that may rely on a more diversified and balanced approach to reserves and trade. That's it for today. Share your thoughts on Andy's analysis of gold and silver prices in the comment section below. If you find this video informative, don't forget to support and turn on notifications to stay informed about our latest videos. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.